Welcome everyone, I'm Jed Shlackman. I work as a holistic counselor, hypnotherapist, and energy healer. In this video I want to respond to a common question that's out there, which is why do some people believe or think that things like yoga, Reiki, and meditation are demonic or evil? So that type of belief can often be found among people who have very strong, rigid, fundamentalist type religious beliefs. People who are part of a religion who feel that anything that's a practice outside of their religious tradition is somehow opening you up to dark forces of some kind, connecting you with evil or demonic influences. So I want to go into some more depth about the nature of those beliefs as well as the nature of those practices and why there's a significant distortion and lack of rationality in those beliefs, where people somehow assume that these practices are dark or demonic or connecting you to evil. If you consider what the idea of demonic is, it's a belief that there are dark or evil spiritual forces, and in many different religious and spiritual traditions, people have a concern about being influenced or affected by those negative or dark forces or entities. So I'm not going to discount the idea that there are beings or energies that have a negative per se type of consciousness or effect. But of course, if we're a human being living a human life and interacting with other people, we're going to encounter plenty of people who have both very positive and very negative qualities and anywhere in between. So obviously in a spiritual dimension that's interacting with or interrelating with our physical life dimension, it's reasonable and sensible to think that you'll find the same phenomenon, that there are both positive and negative polarities, and we can interact with either or both. And if we were to choose to completely avoid interacting with that reality to not encounter the negative, we'd also be missing out on having interactions with and encounters with the positive. So I would make the analogy of children going to school. If you're a parent and you want to really go over the edge in protecting your child from any unpleasant interactions or influences, you might say you're going to homeschool your child, not let them go to a public school or even a private school where they're going to interact with other children, where they might make friends, but they also might be bullied. So rather than letting them explore that reality as a parent, someone might say, I'm going to keep my kid at home and school them here and make sure that only my values, my ideas are what they're going to be exposed to. I'm going to keep that child safe here. So that mindset can exist, and there are some people who do think and act in that way, where they want to be very protective. They don't want their children to encounter things that might be disturbing or unsettling, or to be bullied or teased. However, if you never allow your children to socialize, to interact with other children, to encounter the realities of this social environment that exists out there, then they won't develop the skills or resources to process those experiences, to be strong and resilient and able to handle themselves confidently, to navigate those natural aspects of society, of human life. So we can see that mindset also carrying over into how people relate to religion and spirituality and what things they're willing to explore or encounter, where they don't want their consciousness to be exposed to realms that could potentially bring encounters with things that are negative or unpleasant. So that brings us to these different spiritual practices that I've referred to, things such as yoga, as Reiki, as meditation. These different practices are designed to help us connect to deeper layers of our energy, to become aware of deeper aspects of our consciousness that go beyond this physical plane, aspects of our consciousness that are in the non-physical, where we could encounter other beings of a non-physical nature, other forms of energy and consciousness. So if you're meditating, you're potentially going to connect with the spiritual realm. Many people who are meditating are doing so specifically for that purpose, to kind of open and expand their consciousness, to let go of the focus and attachment toward the physical realm and the ordinary daily mental chatter, so that they can connect with something deeper, with the intuitive realm or the spiritual realm. Some people, when they're meditating, may receive intuitive messages, they might have visions, different things can arise that are understood to come from the spiritual realm. Now, if you believe that when you go into that state, you're opening yourself up to something dark, your own fear might create that type of experience to reflect or confirm your own fears, your own negative beliefs. There's a lot of confirmation bias in this regard. So there are people who will cite a few incidents where someone does a meditation and they feel some type of negative energy or being trying to influence them, and based on that limited experience or anecdote, they conclude that meditation is evil and demonic, and it was put out there to encourage people to open themselves up to darkness, when in reality it's a neutral practice in a sense. It's just helping you shift your state of awareness, shifting your focus of consciousness, where you can go beyond the ordinary physical five senses and access things more on other layers or levels of consciousness, which includes things that can be very positive, very helpful and supportive, things that are very healing. You can use meditation to connect with your own spiritual essence, what you could call your soul or your higher self, and you could also connect with layers or realms of consciousness beyond that. Some people might call those archetypal realms or angelic realms, or the realm of the source of God, the original creative essence. So if you believe that it's something dark and demonic to meditate, and you block yourself from that type of activity or state, then you're constricting and limiting yourself. You're suppressing your own spiritual development based upon that fear or programming that you've had, that rather limited or constricted belief system that may have been presented originally with an intention to keep you safe or protected, but it could also be a belief system that's been promulgated to manipulate or control people, to keep them from exploring their own inner wisdom or intuition, to keep them dependent on some external person or institution that presents itself as spiritual truth or spiritual guidance. So ultimately, if we understand that we're all spiritual beings, all part of the original creative essence, then we can appreciate that we all have access to higher consciousness, and we can use meditative practices with that intention, and we can keep that positive intention to use that state for something that uplifts us or enriches us, that brings healing or positive transformation or personal growth and evolution. Certainly there are people that could use that type of practice or state with what you could call a dark or manipulative intention, but that doesn't mean that any activity involving meditation carries that connotation or outcome. Having spoken a little bit about meditation, I would say that the same fundamental ideas or principles I've discussed also apply with practices like yoga and Reiki. Yoga is something that most people in our Western culture don't even have a very clear or accurate understanding or concept of. People are exposed to the physical exercise, the stretching type practices that are part of yoga, the hatha yoga postures. However, in the full system and tradition of yoga, that's really just like the first grade, the beginning level of practicing yoga. It's designed to help release constrictions or limitations in the physical body so that you can open up the energy flow, the prana. The prana is the life force, the energy that also connects with consciousness. And as you allow that to flow, to expand more, then your consciousness, your awareness can expand. You're no longer as constricted by physical tension or distortion, by belief systems or emotions. You're able to kind of go through all those and beyond them into deeper meditative states that approach more toward the universal consciousness. So yoga is a systematic way to incrementally pursue that connecting with higher consciousness, and part of it involves healing on a physical and energetic level to release any of the distortions, the stresses and tensions, and the quote karmas or imprints that are there, any traumas that you've picked up in your journey as a human being that are in your energy. So it's about practicing ways of clearing and releasing all of that so that you're more aware of your own essence, of your own energy flow, of your higher consciousness. So if you consider that basic overview of what yoga is, it doesn't sound like something dark or demonic. However, as you do any type of spiritual practice that opens you up, then you can start to have released traumas and pains and emotional wounds, and you can encounter things with your psychic perception that are kind of unpleasant or dark. You might perhaps encounter beings on the non-physical or astral plane that have a negative energetic polarization. So those are realities out there, but if you want to grow and evolve and heal, you can't avoid them. You can't constrict yourself and stay in a little bubble somewhere where you're never aware of anything. The healing process involves expansion, connecting to more of our own potential, more of creation, not further limiting or constricting our perception or sense of who we are. So if you're a yoga practitioner and you happen to be doing some energy clearing, some deep breathing, pranayama, or even working with the physical postures, or just in a deep meditation, and something unsettling arises, that does not mean that yoga is a dark or demonic practice. It just means you've expanded your awareness or perception to something that you hadn't been perceiving or aware of before. And this is an opportunity to center yourself, to be in a state of balance, to find your own grounding and wholeness, so that whatever that is not disturbing you. It's not going to take you over or control you. You don't need to be afraid of it. It's actually the people who go into these situations with fear and negative beliefs about it who can, in a way, create those negative experiences where they feel something is trying to take them over or influence them. It's actually, in a way, a projection of their own fear, their own polarized, disempowering belief, which may come from a religion or cult or some other external system or organization. So I've spoken of meditation and yoga, which really overlap, since the deepest levels or branches of yoga practice are actually meditation practices. Now we're coming to the topic of Reiki, which is universal life force energy healing. And you'll see other similar practices with other names that are forms of spiritual energy healing. So Reiki is not the only tradition or method of that. Basically, any tradition where people are going into a kind of relaxed or meditative state and feeling and sensing this universal flow of energy coming through them, focusing that energy with an intention to support or facilitate healing. Those are all practices that are overlapping with meditation. And the reason I say that is that when you're in a state where you're more tuned into and conscious of that energy flow, you're really in a meditative state. You're more open to feel and sense and perceive deeper layers of your own being or deeper layers of consciousness. Now, when you do that type of practice and you open up energy flow, both within yourself and within other people, you're helping other people open up their own energy, helping them release stress and tension and blockages, per se, in the flow of their energy. Then the energy field starts to become stronger. It starts to kind of expand where people can feel and sense and perceive more. So various forms of psychic perception can be activated when you do practices such as Reiki, as meditation and yoga. So this is just opening up your energy flow and expanding your perception and awareness. That's not good or bad per se. It's not evil. It's not demonic. It's just expanding perception. Now, when your perception is expanded, you can see both positive and negative things that you hadn't been able to perceive before. Just like in human life, when we are interacting with different people, the more knowledge and understanding we have of our environment, the more we might perceive which people are benevolent, which people have more malevolent intentions, and that's a matter of our ability to perceive things. If we were very immature and naive, we might not be able to perceive things very well. We might not be ready to handle or deal with things that are challenging. But if we never give ourselves that opportunity to encounter anything, to grow and mature, then we're keeping ourselves kind of perpetually in an immature, kind of infantile state, where we might feel safe, we might have a sense of well-being, but we're actually not growing or evolving. We're just kind of immersed in our little bubble of reality that's not cognizant of a greater reality, and we're not building the capability to navigate any more expanded reality, to function in that more mature reality field. And that's not sustainable. Eventually you're going to have to encounter other people, other energies, other layers of consciousness or existence. So it's up to you how long you want to keep yourself confined and constricted to a rather limited experience of life. Neither I nor anyone else can tell you that you have to go out and meditate, do yoga, do Reiki, do any other practice that's designed to help you open up and expand. But I am pointing out that it's irrational to think that those practices are in any way inherently dark or evil or demonic. Certainly there are some people doing these types of spiritual practices who are going to have an experience where they encounter something unpleasant. That's not a bad thing. It's part of growing and evolving. And it's not reflective of the totality of what these practices are preparing you for or designed to facilitate. If you happen to go to school one day and someone started to bully you and tease you, you wouldn't conclude based upon that that all the children are evil and school is a bad place to be. Of course, there are some people who are traumatized by that, who distort their perception and their thought process to an extent where they are almost thinking that way, where they become very anxious and avoidant of those environments. And in psychology, we would tend to look at that as something pathological, where they've had an unpleasant or traumatic experience, and their reaction to that is actually causing them to avoid living their life. They've become irrationally fearful and anxious and overprotective of themselves, and not allowing themselves to be more resilient, to build self-confidence, to strengthen their own energy and integrity so that they can go out into the world, they can encounter people and not be overwhelmed, not be scared away from living their purpose. For those that are interested in spirituality, including practices like yoga, Reiki, meditation, spiritual healing, I invite you to view other videos I've created on those topics. And you can also visit my website, phinsights.com. That's phinsights.com, where you can find additional information and details about healing sessions and healing events. For now, I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful day. Namaste.